Behold! The Supreme Dragon Master Knight! Now see his awesome powers!
Hey YouTube, Philly J with Different Dimension Gaming here, coming at you with a Blue Eyes Magia deck profile. So a few weeks ago we did the regular Blue Eyes deck profile, and I figured it'd be a good time to update it with Magia now that it's fairly available. It's still got a pretty hefty price point, but if you can grab one, it's definitely worth playing. So let's dive in. We're going to start with 2 copies of Blue Eyes White Dragon. And we're playing 2 because 3's kind of bricky. And as Kaiba once said,
in your entire deck, there's not a single card that can stand up to a Blue Eyes White Dragon. So what hope do you have against 2?
It is worth knowing this is kind of the heart of the deck. You do have to play at least 2. I used to play 3, but now that I've picked up this, I have shifted to 2. I think it's just better overall. And you don't really want to see it in your hand, but if only one is in your hand, it's not the worst thing in the world. Then we're going to play 3 copies of Maiden of White. This is arguably the best starter in your deck. You can send her from hand or field to the graveyard to activate a True Light from your hand, deck, or graveyard. So it really gets you access to it from anywhere. And then if she's in the graveyard, while you special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon, once per turn you can summon her from the graveyard. And then finally, if she's on the field and you target her with a card effect, either player, you can special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon from your graveyard. It's overall a really great utility card for the deck. And then the other half of that coin, one of the best cards in your deck, is the Sage with Eyes of Blue. And these 2 work in tandem really well together because the Sage can get you access to the Maiden and the Maiden can get you access to the Sage. So if Sage is normal summoned, and it has to be on the normal summon, you can add any level 1 light tuner from your deck to your hand, except for himself. And then his second effect is if you control an effect monster, you can send this guy to the graveyard, send that monster to the graveyard, and if you do special summon a Blue Eyes monster from your deck. That second effect doesn't come up very often, but it does come up, and it's worth noting. The normal summon effect is a soft once per turn, so with something like your Mausoleum of White, you can actually use the effect twice. And for the one-of monsters, we are playing 1 Blue Eyes Jet Dragon. I was playing a Neo Kaiser, but in the Magia build, it's not really worth playing because it kind of bricks your hand a little bit. The only reason I'm not playing it is because I'm playing an alternative engine to get into Magia. If you want to play a more pure Blue Eyes version, you can play the Kaiser Seahorse at 2, and then you could play something like a Chaos Max at 1. But Blue Eyes Jet, if a card you control is destroyed while it's in the hand or in the graveyard, you can special summon it. And then if this card battles, you can bounce an opponent's card back to their hand. And it's important to know you can only use those 2 effects while Blue Eyes White Dragon is on the field or in the graveyard. And then it has a third static effect where other cards you control cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects. So it is also just a really good use of protection in the deck. For the spells and traps, we are playing 3 copies of Wishes for Eyes of Blue. When this card is activated, you discard a card, and then you add 1 level 1 light tuner and 1 speller or trap that mentions Blue Eyes White Dragon from your deck to your hand. And then if it's in the graveyard, you can banish it from the graveyard to target a Blue Eyes monster you control and equip a fusion monster from your extract to it like an equip spell. I said a Blue Eyes monster, but it actually has to be the Blue Eyes White Dragon. So again, a very useful spell in your deck, a really good starter. And then for some one-ofs, we're playing 1 Roar of the Blue-Eyed Dragons, 1 Ultimate Fusion, and 1 Mausoleum of White. Roar of the Blue-Eyed Dragon says special summon 1 Blue Eyes monster from deck, graveyard, or banishment in defense position. But if you don't control Blue Eyes White Dragon, you have to summon Blue Eyes White Dragon. And then you are locked into dragons for the rest of the turn. And then in the graveyard, you can banish it to fusion summon a dragon monster from your extra deck. And the way it works like a polymerization. It uses stuff on field or in the hand as fusion material. Ultimate Fusion says during the main phase, fusion summon a monster that mentions Blue Eyes White Dragon or Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon from your extra deck by shuffling materials from hand, field, or graveyard into the deck. And then for however many Blue Eyes White Dragons you used on the field, you can destroy up to that many cards your opponent controls. So if you can get 1 on the field and then Ultimate Fusion, you can destroy at least 1 card your opponent controls. And finally, Mausoleum of White. During your main phase, you can normal summon a level 1 light tuner in addition to your normal summon. So it gives you that second normal summon in your deck, which is huge. And then you can target a card you control, send a normal monster from your deck to the graveyard to increase the monster on the field's attack by the attack of the monster in the graveyard. And while the 800 attack point boost is not huge, it's more so a utility card to actually get the Blue Eyes into the graveyard rather than it is an attack boost for damage. And then for the traps, we're playing 1 True Light and 1 Majesty of the White Dragons. True Light says your opponent cannot target Blue Eyes White Dragon in your monster zone with card effects. And if this card on the field is destroyed while it's face up, you have to destroy all monsters you control. So that's a problem, obviously. But that's why we play stuff like Blue Eyes Jet Dragon, because it protects the True Light from being destroyed. Now, True Light also has 2 more effects. Because it's a trap card, you can activate them at any point. You can either special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon from your hand or graveyard, or you can set a Blue Eyes a spell or trap that mentions Blue Eyes White Dragon from your deck to your field. And then Majesty of the White Dragons, you reveal up to 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons from your hand, field, graveyard, or banishment, and you can destroy an equal number of cards your opponent controls up to the number of cards revealed. And then you can banish it from the graveyard to ritual summon 1 monster by tributing a Blue Eyes White Dragon. So again, it gives you that access to the Chaos Max play. And that's it for our Blue Eyes cards specifically. Moving into our Magia stuff. Now, this is a very much optional package. You can play it more of a pure list. This list is actually not super tight on the 40 cards. There's like 5 or 6 cards of wiggle room you can use. But I'm currently playing 3 copies of Magician Souls and 1 Illusion of Chaos. I like this package because Illusion of Chaos, you can reveal it in your hand, add 1 monster that mentions Dark Magician from your deck to your hand, and then put 1 card on top of your deck from your hand. And then Magician Souls says send a level 7 spellcaster from your deck to the graveyard to summon itself. And if you'll notice, it's a level 1 spellcaster, which means you can then link it off into your Spirit of the Blue Eyes. And then second effect of Magician Souls is you can send spell or traps you control to the graveyard to draw that many cards, up to 2. So, for an example, we are also running the Primite engine. I'm just going to move these guys up. And so for Primite engine, we're playing 3 copies of Ether Barrel, 3 copies of Lordly Load, and 1 copy of Drill Beam. And one of the things you can do with your Magician Souls is you can set the Lordly Load, the Drill Beam, sorry, send it with Magician Souls to draw a card, and then if you control a normal monster, you can just reset it from your graveyard. So it's a super useful engine. But for the Primite engine, now I realize this is a very expensive engine. This is 100% optional. This is 100% not mandatory for the deck. I was able to pick it up for a good price, so I did. You can just run a more pure version of Blue Eyes, a more budget version of Blue Eyes. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't let people tell you that there is. But for these effects, Primite Dragon Ether Barrel, when it is normal summoned, you can set a Primite Speller Trap from your deck. And then in your standby phase, this card was misprinted. In only your standby phase, if you have a normal monster on field or in grave, you can add it back to your hand. And finally, you can tribute it from the field to send a normal monster from your deck to the graveyard. Primite Lordly Load. When it is activated, you can add one Primite card from your deck to your hand, except for itself. You can also declare the name of one normal monster. So in this deck, it would be Blue Eyes White Dragon. And you can summon that monster from the deck or graveyard, but you cannot activate the effects of special summon monsters the turn you activate this effect. And finally, normal monsters and Primite monsters you control gain 300 attack for every normal monster with a different name in your graveyard. So in our case, no matter what the situation, it's only going to be an additional 300 attack, but if it comes up, it comes up. And finally, Primite Drill Beam. You can reveal a normal monster in your hand or a Primite monster to target a card on the field, negate it, and banish it. But if you control a normal monster or a level 5 or higher Primite monster, you don't have to reveal anything in your hand. And then if you control a Primite monster, you can reset it from your graveyard every turn. So it is just an absurdly good piece of interaction because it deals with literally any card on the field. And then for our non-engine, I'm playing one Bestial Magnamut and one Called by the Grave. And these are just standard stuff in 2025. I mean, a Bestial Magnamut lets you, in the end phase, search out any dragon, like your Ether Barrel or your Blue Eyes Jet, whichever dragon you need in your hand. And then Called by the Grave just helps us deal with our opponent's hand traps and things like that. Now, we are playing a lot of hand traps in this. For starters, we're playing 3 Effect Veiler, 3 Fuelos, 3 Ash Blossom, and 3 Infinite Impermanence. Can't even fit them all on the camera. There we go. So Effect Veiler is a level 1 light tuner, so you can actually search it with both your Wishes for Eyes of Blue and your Sage with Eyes of Blue. And you can target an opponent's monster and negate its effects for the turn only in your opponent's main phase, and it has to go to the graveyard. So if this gets hit with something like a Bestial, its effect will not resolve because it's not in the graveyard. Mulcharmy Fuelos. If you control no cards, so this card is ideal for going second, you can discard it, and every time your opponent summons from the deck or the extra deck, you draw 1 card. And then in the end phase, if you have the amount of cards your opponent controls plus 6 in your hand, you have to shuffle back randomly into the deck until you have the same amount as your opponent controls plus 6. So to better explain that, if your opponent has 4 cards on the field in their end phase, and you have 11 cards in your hand, you have to, at random, shuffle 1 card from your hand into the deck, so that the remaining cards in your hand are equal to the number of cards your opponent controls, so 4, plus 6, so the additional 6 you have, so you can end on 10 cards in hand, and then draw the 11th card for turn when you begin your turn. This is an extremely, extremely powerful card. It's also not a super budget-friendly option. I would recommend something like a Droll Lockbird in the place of this. And then Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring and Infinite Impermanence are pretty standard hand traps at this point. I think both of them have been bad for like 1, maybe 2 formats in the past. But that's it for the main deck. For the extra deck, we're going to go through this with our summoning mechanics. So we're going to start with Fusion. We have Dragon Master Magia, Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, and Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon. So Dragon Master Magia needs 3 Blue Eyes monsters or 1 Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon and either a Chaos or Blackluster Soldier Ritual Monster. So in our case, we're playing the Chaos Ritual Monster and the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. And you will summon this with your Ultimate Fusion, because there's like a 1% chance you will ever be able to summon this with the Roar effect in the graveyard. And the reason this card is so good is because it is a negate for a monster effect, a spell, and a trap in one turn, and then over and over and over again for every turn after that. And then if this card leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you can special summon either 1 Blue Eyes monster or 1 Chaos or Blackluster Soldier Ritual monster from your extra deck or graveyard. So on the way out, it also replaces itself for some follow-up. The only flaw with this card is that it's a little bit difficult to actually summon into, but once it's out on the field, it pretty much controls the tempo of the game after that. Now, Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon is not a card we're going to be summoning because it needs 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons and we're only playing 2. However, if you get into some weird kind of game state where you summon it with the effect of your Dragon Master Magia, if it attacks directly or if it attacks your opponent and you control no other cards, you can send 1 Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon to the graveyard from your extra deck, and it can attack again. And you can use that effect twice per turn. But ideally, what we're using it for is, with our Witch's effect in the graveyard, we're going to banish it to equip it to our Blue Eyes White Dragon. And then when we summon into one of our synchros, this will go to the graveyard. And while it's in the graveyard, when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a Blue Eyes monster you control, you can banish it from the graveyard to negate the effect. The 1 Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon for our Magia summon, and Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon. This card can either be fusion summoned by using a Blue Eyes monster and a effect dragon monster, or you can summon it by sending a Blue Eyes White Dragon equipped with a dragon monster to the graveyard to special summon itself. It is unaffected by trap cards. So if your opponent blows up your True Light, this will stay on the field because it will not be destroyed because of its own effect. And then finally, if it battles and deals battle damage to your opponent, at the end of the battle phase, you can set any trap from your graveyard to the field. So it's also really good for recursion. So you can get back, it's any trap. So literally any one of these you can reset from your graveyard with its effect. For the Synchro lineup, we're playing 2 copies of Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, 1 Ultimate Spirit Dragon, 1 Azure Eyes Silver Dragon, 1 Lightstorm Dragon, shift everybody over, and 1 Black Rose Moonlight Dragon. So Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon says it needs a tuner and 1 or more non-tuner Blue Eyes monsters. When it's on the field, if your opponent were to activate a card or effect in the graveyard, Spirit Dragon can negate the effect. Neither player can summon more than 1 monster at a time. And it can tribute itself to tag itself out into any one of these other monsters because it needs to swap out into a light dragon synchro monster. But that monster is destroyed in the end phase of that turn. Ultimate Spirit Dragon needs 2 or more tuners and 1 non-tuner Blue Eyes monster. When your opponent activates a card or effect on the field, Ultimate Spirit can negate the effect, destroy that card, and then gain 1,000 attack until the end phase. If it is destroyed, because it will be destroyed by the effect of spirit, you can summon any light dragon monster from your graveyard. And it's important to know that these two are not an infinite loop, because spirit only gains its tag out effect when it is synchro summoned. Azure Eyes Silver Dragon, when it is summoned, you need your dragons cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect until the end of the next turn. And then during your standby phase, you can summon any normal monster from your graveyard. So this is kind of our anti-True Light policy. If your opponent destroys your True Light while Spirit is on the field and you've got like 3 or 4 other monsters on the field, you simply change the effect Spirit Dragon to tag out into Azure Eyes, and suddenly none of your cards, your monsters are destroyed by True Light because they cannot be destroyed until the end of the next turn. It is not an activated effect, it is a static, constant effect. Lightstorm Dragon, when it is special summoned, you can reveal normal monsters in your graveyard. In our case, that would be at most 2. And then you can destroy spell or traps your opponent controls up to the number of revealed monsters plus 1. So it can deal with 3 back row possibly, but ideally it's also just a really good push while it's on the field because it is a 2700 monster. So it's definitely worth incorporating because it deals with the back row. And it's not on synchro summon, it's on special summon, as is the Azure Eyes. You will almost never actually make these cards, but if it ever comes up, you're going to be happy that it's there. And finally, Black Rose Moonlight Dragon. If this card is special summoned, or a level 5 or higher monster is special summoned to your opponent's field, you can target one special summon monster your opponent controls and return that target to the hand. You can only use this effect once per turn. It's worth remembering, all these effects are hard once per turns. Except for Spirit's tag out effect, that is a soft once per turn. That's it for your synchros. We are only playing one Xyz monster. That is just Typhon. It's just a really good way to deal with difficult boards. And if you summon it at the end of your combo, because you can't summon again after you summon it, it just kind of helps you clean up the board. And much like Zeus, nobody hard makes this card. They use kind of its cheat method to summon it. So if your opponent summoned 2 or more times from the extra deck on their last turn, or this turn, you can special summon this guy by using the monster you control with the highest attack. Now, it does stop you from summoning for the rest of the turn. However, monsters with 3000 or more attack cannot activate their effects. And then once per turn, you can detach a material from Typhon to return one monster on the field to the hand. It does not target. It does not destroy. It just deals with stuff. It's a very, very useful card. I strongly urge you to pick one up. It was reprinted in Quarter Century Stampede, so they're like $1 each now. And finally, for the links, we're playing 2 Spirit with Eyes of Blue, 1 Hieratic Seal of Heavenly Spheres, and 1 Lion of the Light Charmer. Spirit with Eyes of Blue needs 1 level 4 or lower dragon or spellcaster monster. When it is link summoned, you can add 1 Mausoleum of White from your deck to your hand, and then you can tribute it to special summon 1 Blue Eyes White Dragon from your graveyard. Again, it is just a really good utility card. It's kind of works in a 1-card combo. Hieratic Seal of Heavenly Spheres needs 2 dragon monsters. During your opponent's main phase, if this card is in the extra monster zone, you can tribute it to return 1 face-up card on the field to the hand. Again, does not target. And then when this card is tributed, you can special summon any dragon from your deck, but its attack and defense becomes 0. So it's a really effective way to get out one of your one-of dragons, and then it plays a little bit more defense. And finally, the Light Charmer needs 1 light monster and then 1 other monster. When it is link summoned, you can special summon a light monster from your opponent's graveyard. And then if it's destroyed by battle or card effect, you can add one light monster from your deck to your hand with less than 1500 defense. Now, normally we would end the video here, ask you to like and subscribe, do all that good stuff, but we're going to run a combo just to kind of show off what this deck can do. But before I do that, I just want to explain something really quick. None of these 5 cards are mandatory in this deck. These are your flex spots in the extra deck. It is a very loose extra deck, which makes it really, really good for this format because it lets you play stuff like Ultimate Slayer, things like that to kind of help deal with your opponent's board. So keep that in mind for the future. For our combo, we're going to start with Magician Souls, Maiden of White, Ether Barrel, and then any 2 other cards in your hand. First thing we're going to do, stand by me. We're going to activate the Magician Souls, sending our Illusion of Chaos to the graveyard to special summon our Illusion Souls. Now you're going to link that off into your Spirit with Eyes of Blue. On summon, it's going to add our Mausoleum of White to our hand, which you can then activate. We're going to use the effect targeting the Spirit, sending our Blue Eyes White Dragon to the graveyard. Then we're going to activate the Maiden of White to activate the True Light from our deck. We're going to use that effect. We're going to set wishes. You're going to activate wishes to grab a copy of Ultimate Fusion and Sage with Eyes of Blue. Then you're going to use the Spirit effect, Tribute itself, to summon back the Blue Eyes, and then using her own effect, the Maiden, to summon herself. Then you're going to use the Wishes effect to banish itself, to equip a copy of Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon to your Blue Eyes, and then these 2 are going to turn into a Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. Then we're going to use our additional normal summon. We always use the additional one first so that if it gets destroyed, we still have our actual normal summon. Summon Sage, use the effect, grab an effect Veiler. Then we can use our actual normal summon to summon our Primite Dragon Ether Barrel. And we'll use its effect to set a Primite Lordly Load from our deck. Then we're going to link our Sage off into our second Spirit. And the reason we do that is because we need to keep one of our Blue Eyes on the field. So we're going to take these 2 and link them off into our Hieratic Seal of Heavenly Spheres. Sorry, stuff's getting cut off by the camera. Just downshift everything. There we go. Now we're going to activate our Lordly Load. And that's going to add the Primite Drill Beam to our hand. Then we're going to activate the Lordly Load again, declaring Blue Eyes White Dragon to summon the other Blue Eyes from our deck. Get them to face the same way. Now you're going to set the Drill Beam. You're going to set your Ultimate Fusion. And you're going, if you have another hand trap, you're going to set that one too. So we did grab 2 Imperm, so we'll just set that right there. You've got the one of Effect Veiler in your hand still. You're going to pass a turn to your opponent. As soon as it hits their main phase, you're going to activate Ultimate Fusion. You're going to shuffle back Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon and your Illusion of Chaos. And that will allow you to summon the Dragon Master Magia. So when your opponent actually starts their turn, you have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10 pieces of interaction on their turn, plus follow-up, because in your standby phase, the ether barrel will add itself back to your hand. You can still reset things with your True Light. You can still summon back Blue Eyes with your True Light. And your opponent is basically walking against a wall that you're trying to stop them from doing anything with. So you've got a bounce with spheres that then replaces itself into either one of these two cards. Ideally going first, you would use Jet because it gives you that additional layer of protection for your back row. Going second, you would use Magnemite because you want to get that dragon in your hand for follow-up. Spirit can only summon one its return, or one monster at a time. So any kind of pendulum deck, or even Exo Sister, they can't really play. Negate an effect in the graveyard, tag itself out into your Omni Negate. You've got a spell, trap, and monster negate with Magia. You've got an Omni Negate with your Drill Beam that also banishes it. You've got the monster negate with Effect Veiler. And if you sphere tag out into Jet, it also prevents this from being destroyed because now other cards you control cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect. Plus you've got the Aether Barrel for follow-up, Drill Beam for follow-up. Lord Low can infinitely resummon your Blue Eyes White Dragons. True Light can keep cycling stuff out of your deck, and you can always draw into more hand traps. This is an incredibly powerful board state. It is slightly convoluted, but I think that even if you don't draw access to Magia with this build, you still end on an absurdly powerful Blue Eyes board. So if you like the combo, if I can improve the combo, please let me know, because I would love to improve this in any way I can. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.